All right, we'll start the panel. So you're here to see how do I make this work, and we're going to start with introductions. We'll each go through and introduce ourselves, and then we're really going to treat this like a Q&A, so if you have questions, we'll delve into whatever your question is. So.
All right, my name is Sarah. I go by Sarah Spooky Stitch online as like my cosplay name. You can call me Sarah, you can call me Spooky, whichever. I work as a professional costume technician, mostly at the Minnesota Opera, but I also freelance all around there. I'm working in Wisconsin right now and drove 4.5 hours to get here last night. But my specialties are like kind of structured sewing, so things that are like mascots, corsetry, tailoring, that kind of stuff. And I like dabble in other like craft proppy things. Done a little bit of armor, but mostly it's weird sewing. Weird sewing that does weird structure.
Hi, I'm Haruka. I use they, them pronouns. My specialty is sewing as well as what's called quick rigging in theater. I've been a quick change dresser for almost a decade. Basically, if you don't know how to get in or out of a costume, I can probably figure it out. I've also worked with things like light up costumes and, oh gosh, basically animals, inanimate objects, all those types of things, so yeah.
Okay, my name is Zaffke. I decided not to wear a costume and now I feel a little naked, but that's okay. So I've been costuming for a good 20 years at CONvergence and whatever, although in the past 10 years, most of my costumes are kid-related and I'm figuring things out for them. I can do all the sewing stuff, but not as much of the structured sewing stuff, but where I like to focus a lot of my time is more on the graphic art things, doing sublimation, 3D printing, that kind of stuff. So I have a whole setup with sublimation, 3D printing, Cricut stuff, all that stuff at home, and that's where I'll kind of add those little touches to costumes.
My name is Janine Wardale. Apparently I'm now also known as the Ducky Lady or the Ducky Queen. I don't know, I think I should get a tiara, as I am the inspiration behind the mobile rubber ducky party, which will be happening again today between 3 and 5. Look for a big ash yellow dress.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I have been costuming since I had dolls. My Barbies had clothes. My claim to fame is I will spend 1 hour sewing and I will spend 5 hours embellishing. I have won awards at both Costume Con and World Con, including Best of and Master Class. I like to work with unusual materials, and people will say to me, Janine will make a dress out of anything, including paper. And I'm currently going to learn how to wood turn, because that's what I need for my Seattle dress. I need to learn how to turn wood, and I will upcycle and recycle anything that I can get my hands on. And how the heck did I make what I'm wearing? My underskirt is a bed skirt. They make the best petticoats on the face of the earth. I am a perfect full-size gal. And then I have a bottom sheet and a top sheet. There is less than $2. I think I paid $1 for each of these pieces. And it was just a joke that kind of took over, which is where a lot of my things come from.
And I'm Todd Murray. I've been costuming at CONvergence since, 2004, 2005. Done it seriously since 2007. I won the Best in Show at CONvergence Masquerade in 2007 for Gamma versus the Sheraton. I like working in a bunch of different materials. Every time I make a new costume, I like to learn some new stuff. So I've done molding, sculpting, casting. I've done 3D printing, leather. That's currently my favorite. Some sewing. I'm not the greatest sewer out there, but I can get by and so forth.
Talk about your electronics work, it's good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've done electronic stuff too.
Yeah, I had to learn that for the last thing.
Yeah. It just starts doing a sonic screwdriver, and then all of a sudden you've got blinking LED costumes, you know?
I learned that I will never do another light-up costume. I I am lucky. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, and we have a space called the Bodgery, which is a makerspace. If you have one in your area, join it. In order to accomplish what I needed to do, it took a person with the electrical engineering degree, the head of the electronics department at the Bodgery, my husband, and then finally somebody came through that said, no, we need to simplify this so she can figure this out on stage to create the effect that I wanted.
It's called the Twin Cities Makerspace here.
I was just gonna say that because, and the Twin Cities Makerspace, if you are looking into beginning costuming and you want to try some of these things, they have a 3D printing room, they have a soldering, small electronics room, they have a huge wood shop, huge metal shop.
Including blacksmithing.
Yep, blacksmithing. I've taken, my kids took that blacksmithing classes from the blacksmith guys there. They're awesome. Everyone's pretty helpful. And that's a great way, a laser engraving room with a couple of great lasers. So they have a lot of amazing things there.
There
too.
are also sewing machines and sergers.
Yep.
Yeah. Duluth just opened up a makerspace too. I know that's what, half hour or so from here, or 45 minutes. They just opened up a new makerspace, and I met the founders of that the other day. They only have like 100 and some people, so.
There is going to be our makerspace, the Twin Cities Makerspace has a panel on Sunday. I think it's like one of the last panels, like a 5 p.m. Interest panel, if anyone's interested in that. So.
Is it free to go or?
There is a cost. I think it's $70 a month to use all the stuff. But I mean, it's a lot to run it. But they do have a membership for those who might not be able to afford that, and that's either 30 or 35 right now still, so.
And the Madison Makerspace that I belong to has 3 levels of tools, which means that, you know, anybody can use the simplest tools, and then there's stuff that you need assistance, and then there's stuff like the really expensive new $28,000 laser that you must be a member to use. But look for Makerspace in your area because it's just a wealth of knowledge.
Or do what I do. What I did is inherit a bunch of tools from my dad.
So does anyone have a specific question they want to get started with? Like, how do I solve this?
All right, I'm trying to make what looks like an ancient Celtic robe. It's coming off of the captain iron, but it needs to have kind of a woven tapestry type set of horses, stylized horses that would go on the front and another one on the back. And I have tried yarn, and it doesn't stay on the needle and through the fabric. And I have tried ribbon, and it kind of goes all over the place unless you stick it down with that stitch witchery type stuff. But then it's trouble to try and get your needle through it to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to go. So it's in a box right now, somewhere at this area.
And what kind of fabric is it?
It's heavier fabric right now. I think it's almost denim. It's not quite that heavy, but
And what kind of texture do you want for your...
well, I was originally going to see if there was any way that I could actually weave it with the design woven into it, but I don't know anything that we can.
Can you, I mean, I'm just wondering, can you just embroider the design?
Can you summarize the question? It was hard to hear back here.
Yeah. So, I'll open it. Okay. So the question is, you're, from what I'm hearing, you have a Celtic robe. You're trying to somehow weave horses on it.
Yes.
You've tried maybe knitting or doing some other things, and you're trying to get these horses on the robe, right? But they need to look like a woven horse.
Or an embroidered horse, and like I said, I originally started with the yarn, but even though I have a needle that will handle the yarn won't stay on the needle to go through the fabric. After the first stitch.
Have you tried, yarn is pretty thick. Have you tried embroidery floss, like a smaller
I
thread?
haven't tried yet, no.
So you're looking at top stitching the yarn on as kind of what
Yeah.
it sounds like. So an alternative yarn has generally is a bit loose for that. There are specific types of cording that you can buy that might fare a little bit better if you want like that kind of like a stitched on cord situation.
Okay.
I would specifically like do some looking into cording
Okay.
versus yarn. There are specific like types of cord that are intended for top applying. The word is escaping me right now. Do any of you remember what it's called?
Would painting be an option?
I did try painting with a paint pen and it just looks black and it's supposed to be gold.
Oh,
Could you knit
A
the
solution to that is to do like a base layer in like white and then put the gold on top of it, is generally how you get stuff like that to pop on a darker fabric.
That's red. Red is not that dark.
It still like gives you a nice base.
That's true, that's true.
what about HTV vinyl, heat transfer vinyl? That's what I would do.
Like a cricket type?
I don't
Like a cricket,
You don't need a cricket if you don't have one. You can cut it with scissors.
you can make a stencil and you can cut look up HTV or heat transfer vinyl. From what you've said, this is the last person I know who did something, that's what she ended up doing.
And if
And then it will be gold.
yeah, if you want it just gold, but if you're looking for a specific, are you just looking for it to be one color horse?
Yeah, it's basically supposed to look almost like dot work. I did a variation of the Rohan horses from Lord of the Rings for the two that are facing in the front, and I have another one with the full face on the back.
Did you say you could knit?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say you could make something that was knitted or crocheted or something like that, and then attach it to your garment using just needle and thread, possibly.
Yeah, somebody else that I know said something about using tapestry fabric to do the horses and then attach it to
Then heat applique them with one render. That would be another way of doing it. Depends on how shiny you want them. Heat transfer vinyls can be really shiny.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
But you might be able to find a nice gold metallic fabric with some depth to it, which would give you the illusion of knots. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You familiar with Iron Golem from Minecraft at all?
No, but we can look up what it looks like.
Say it again?
Well, I can show you. Iron Golem from Minecraft. I originally made this for an office thing on cardboard and paper. I might remake it. I made it out of foam, but then it just kind of like the corners just fall apart.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a good way to make like a structured box.
I'd consider using Sintra for that. There's a panel on using PVC foam yesterday, and that'd be a good option for that.
I'm so worried about like solidifying this. That's come together at all these right angles and then stay at a right angle.
Sure, so if you would like to try using foam and maybe rebuilding it out of foam, I would go with the highest density foam you can find. So buying specifically from cosplay sources will tend to get you pretty high density foam. Cutting those right angles really precisely at a 45-degree angle where they're gonna meet into that corner is really great, and also making sure you're using a good adhesive like barge. So my personal favorite with like EVA foam is contact cement, specifically barge. And every time I mention barge, I have to say you need to be using gloves and ventilation and a respirator when you use contact cement.
I used to have contact cement instead of barge, but it didn't. Like because there's so much, and I'm wearing it, so there's wear, like there's gravity, like
Yeah.
it starts to just tear.
Can you reinforce the corner? So this is where I would think, okay, so I'm thinking if you're gonna 3D print something that's too heavy and too structured, but can you can you do something where you, and of course I'm thinking 3D printer, not everyone has
I
that,
have one and I tried it. It helped, but not.
like doing a corner, like a structured corner?
Yeah.
You could also reinforce the corners with a thermoplastic, like Wargla on the inside.
Or go to Home Depot and look in the metal products aisle. They've got like different shapes like L channel, C channel, and that sort of thing. In fact, I used L channel and C channel to build the wings, build the structure for my wings here.
The hardware store is your friend. They might look at you weird, but then you'll find that one guy that'll be like, oh, I want to do that too.
You may be going to the hardware store and sitting in the plumbing aisle looking for materials for a mascot, and an employee walks up to you thinking you have a plumbing project, and they say, can I help you? What are you doing? And you're like, I'm making a giant raspberry. And they're like, I can't help you with that. And I'm like, no, you can't.
And then you find the plumbing guy that said, oh, you need tubing to do what? I need a hoop skirt. And they're like, oh, okay. And he takes you over to the aisle and he pulls out some of each of the different sizes, and he says, how thick do you want it to be, and how much does it need to hold on? And he's like, I should have married you, you know? Because my husband was like, what? I was like, no, it's perfect.
PEX tubing is great for hoops. I have PEX tubing in my costume right now.
Yeah.
I found that kind of person at REI looking for a harness, like a backpacking harness for a big costume.
Yeah.
Backpacks for harnesses, REI, in case you did not hear that.
We love hiking backpacks as bases for big things. They're great.
The craft section at Walmart isn't too bad either. I found stuff that you can't find anywhere else in there. The 3/16" dowels. You just have to cut them and shape them the way you want.
This hand person.
That backpack mention, I actually want to do the heavy mask salesman from
Oh, yeah.
But I want to do it like these guys, where they're kind of in the backpack and the front guy is like tucked it.
Oh,
Ah, that is cool.
But how do I get in and out of that for the back? Is the problem.
So my suggestion
Well, let's
is to
repeat the
make
question
it like
for
a
people.
bottom entrance and have, yeah. So what I would do is like they probably like climb into it through the bottom.
Okay.
That's what I tend to do with stuff that's done on backpack support. So then you can insert the backpack from the opening on the bottom, and then you can kind of like crawl on in there and get the backpack on and stand up.
Okay.
Is generally the easiest way to go about that. Versus if you need like an additional like zipper, if your bottom opening isn't big enough, you can kind of, or like a Velcro opening that just like opens and then shuts like kind of in the back or on one of the corners.
Okay.
That might help you get in it. But like usually the bottom is the point of entry for that kind of stuff. And that way your legs can stick out.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Sarah has pictures of that on her page.
I made a Gengar that's really similar to that, where I just kind of like pop in the bottom.
Have you guys worked with feathers at all? I have a couple cosplay items that I want to make that require a lot of feathers, but feathers are fragile and I'm kind of afraid to work with those. Is there something similar that I could like make feathers out of instead of actually getting them shipped on feathers?
Depends on the look you want.
Yeah. What's the, give us an example of the costume.
So one is a chocobo rider, so fluffy bird,
Mhm.
and the other is Articuno. So decent sized feathers.
Are they supposed to look like real feathers, like real bird feathers?
Yeah.
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of the Chocobo Rider. Do you start at, like, if you start the base of it with something that's a fluffier fabric that's, you know, like the right color yellow, and then you're putting feathers on it, you know, it's going to be more forgiving with the amount of feathers that you need to use. When you do any feather work, you're going to expect to lose some feathers, you know, just like our little duck friends lose their feathers, you know. So my first thought would be start with something almost fluffier for a base, but maybe not. What do you guys think?
So if you, furries have the answer to everything in my opinion. So you can, I would recommend looking into what people do on bird fursuits. A lot of the time it is taking that like longer, like 3-inch plus pile fur, especially for the Chocobo Rider. What you could do for the body is cover it in that fur, and then they will carve it into like kind of feathery shapes with hair trimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you basically like carve the little like scoops of the feathery shape. You can also accent that with actual feathers in additional places, or if you want a perfect color match, a thing I'm going to be doing very similarly for hopefully my next large build is taking fur and making feathers out of it. So basically like taking like very thin strips of the fur and like sandwiching two of them together with some sort of wire or structure in the middle, and then Mod Podging it and cutting it into shape. So if you want like an absolutely perfect color match, you can individually make feathers like a fucking crazy person. If you don't want to do that, you can just use actual feathers. But there's tons of like, they also, you can look into like what a lot of fursuits do. Like some of them do large wings and that are like more like shapes covered in fur and then carved to have interesting texture. So if you want like exaggerated stuff like that, for the Articuno, there is also the option of like lots of people do EVA foam feathers for big plumage on stuff like that. But if you want that softer feel, I would recommend kind of starting with textile oil-based versus like foam-based.
Also look up what are called ribbon flowers. How do I explain? Essentially you make the stem and then you run ribbons this way and you stitch them down and then you just go smaller and smaller and smaller. It uses a lot of ribbon. It can also, there are some yarns and some cording, like if you used a heavier metallic cording, you can also make feathers that way. There's another thing, I'll think of it in a minute. Depends upon how long you want them to be. Because moonlight feathers is expensive, but they're good.
For as expensive, but not as expensive as real feathers.
Yeah. Do you guys know how to extend feathers? That if you've got short feathers and you want to make them longer, some of the like 24-inch feathers are really expensive, especially if you want the nice ones. But sometimes you can take two smaller ones and you can basically wire them or sew them to give them either depth or to extend length for them. It's a way to get a longer feather, because quite often it's cheaper to buy two 12-inch feathers than to buy 18-inch feathers. They'll also become fuller. There's also ways that you can curl and you can twist your feathers so that they look older, if you choose to go with real feathers.
Are you hand sewing those, I assume?
When you're combining feathers together, yes, I hand sew them. I do not trust glue. If I can hand sew it, I will.
Wearing feathers is also great if you want a lot of volume on the feathers. So this is especially common in like hat making with those ostrich plumes. Like if you look at old vintage hats, the feathers on them are like wild and full and beautiful, and you compare that to like the dinky ostrich plumes you buy at the craft store, and you're like, why don't mine look like that? It's because those things are like 10 ostrich feathers stacked on top of each other. So like if you want like really like volume and drama, stacking the feathers is a great way to do that.
And there's a couple of, there's ways to age them, there's ways to color them, you can over-dye them, you can over-dye the tips. But yeah, like I said, moonlight feathers is expensive.
Yeah. Can you guys talk about just your process of how you would digest like a big build? So like if you got something really giant, like what's your process for like planning it out and executing it?
Okay, I suppose I could start on that. So I did a Michelangelo Ninja Turtle costume a few years ago. I've got a friend from the costume community who also did a Raphael Ninja Turtle, so I kind of followed his build, but broke it down into the smaller pieces. I knew I needed the shell on the back, I needed the plaster on front, and then the leg, or the arms and legs parts of it, and then the head. So digest it down into what size or what pieces for each part of your body you need, and then think about what you're going to use for materials. So for the Ninja Turtle, I used EVA foam. Well, I used styrofoam to give it the curved shape, and then put EVA foam on top of it for the scales. For the head, I used upholstery foam. I was going to thrift stores and buying old cushions or upholstery foam or whatever, and then cutting that into shape. And then to make the skin for the arms and legs and the head, I used silicone, like a two-part silicone that you mix together, and it's called dragon skin silicone. So breaking it down to the smaller parts is the first thing I'd recommend. Second thing I'd recommend is know your materials. And if you don't know your materials, ask around. You'll get all sorts of advice. Most of it good, I hope. Maybe some of it misleading, but.
Would you recommend working torso out?
Always do your undergarments first. Be it a dress, be it anything. Always do your undergarments first. Do not do what I did once. Which is, not figure out how to do the structure and how to attach it,
I never think about that sort of things, but I'm a guy.
How did you carve the upholstery foam?
How to carve it? I used an electric carving knife.
Okay.
That one they,
Did you get it pretty smooth, or was it just, you just put something over it?
It was fairly smooth, but I put spandex over it and then layered the dragon skin silicone on top of it. I've got pictures on my phone if you're interested.
Razor blades are also really good for carving foam. I specifically like Persona blades. They're a hair cutting blade. It's Persona with 2 ends. You can buy a big old pack of them and they're great. But they're like the sharpest razor blade you'll ever use. So they're great for carving. They're great for like really meticulous cutting if you want your corners sharp. I love them. They're a little pricey, especially if you just buy the dinky packs. So if you buy them in bulk, it's not as bad.
The knives for vinyl wrapping cars, they're hobby knives, but you can find them, and they're incredibly sharp. But in just the snap-off, like just the snap-off ones, but they're fairly cheap because that vinyl you can only have a razor sharp edge. You cut maybe 5 feet worth, and that blade is trash, and you gotta break it off and do the next one. So they're really sharp, they're pretty cheap.
I will say for me, I usually try to get pictures of everything all the way around and then figure out, I do a lot of historical stuff, figure out what methods they would have used at that time to get the right silhouette. And yeah, like you go from the inside out. You know, I've got 4 layers over my waist right now to get the right shape. And I like to break everything down into very, very detailed lists. So I'll have the category as an item, so like shirt, and then material, how much material I need, you know, the elastic thread, the non-elastic thread, and then every step I need to do in order of how I build it, so.
Yeah, I will say along those lines, I love like finding a bunch of references, and then part of my process is like drawing what I'm gonna do, usually several times over. So I'll like draw whatever character is, I'll draw it from different angles, I'll like draw kind of like breakdowns of what, because I do a lot of weird sort of abstract things, so I'll draw breakdowns of like, if I'm doing something that's weird over a human body that doesn't necessarily look like a human body, I'll start with like, what does a human body look like, normal proportions, my short little self, to be realistic, and then kind of like sketch on top of that proportionately what I want it to look like, just so that I can like actually see how it will translate better into a real human form, because people don't look like anime characters or anything, so like kind of getting a feel of how that translates. And then I also do pretty detailed like list breakdowns, and I also do budgets along with that, so I do like budget spreadsheets for all my build, and I estimate how much things will cost. And then I track how much I actually spend on things so that my future estimates can be more accurate and know how much a month I'm allowed to spend on cosplay.
a budget?
A budget.
What's the easiest way and most convincing way to actually sculpt foam rubber?
Sculpt foam rubber? You're talking about like the upholstery foam, like I was talking about? Okay. Yeah, maybe start off with rough cuts with a long knife, and then, like I mentioned, one of those carving knives that like you use to carve Thanksgiving turkey. Just use that, in the shape that you want.
Wait, do you mean upholstery foam or like cast foam rubber?
Foam rubber.
Yeah, so like generally, I think people usually sculpt for that out of monster clay. And then do their mold and then cast in the foam rubber. I haven't done foam rubber personally, but
it's a real challenge finding foam rubber
yeah, I know special effects stuff is really hard to come by on the internet, like instructions for it. You're delving into like 10-plus-year-old forums. I think the Sam Winston School has some online classes that are paid but go over like prosthetics casting more in depth than you're going to find for free anywhere else. So that may be a thing you have to take a class for, because it is so hard to find SFX resources, partially because so many people who do SFX professionally are bound by NDAs for all of their work. So like,
yeah, the thickest I found was 6 inches, but it's really expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, what you could do is layer the pieces together and glue them together like that.
I think you've had a question for a bit.
Yeah. This cat is the second round of it.
it's supposed to be, the brim is supposed to be more uniform, and I can't figure out how to, like, since it's round, to wrap it in something without the full, like, a bunch of folds appearing along. When it's supposed to look like almost a Santa hat brim, but not as fuzzy.
I would probably do similar to Hyatt. I would cut out darts.
That's what I was
Yeah,
just
you have the
thinking, too.
benefit of stylistic lines on that, it looks like, that you could turn into seams. You could even like put something in the seams for that one. Like you could do a nice little piping or something in it to like have that little line pop. But like, yeah, basically darting it out of your pattern.
Yeah.
Person holding a blue X.
Yeah. So I've been delving into more historical costuming. How do you approach reboning?
Do what?
Reboning for corsetry.
How do you take, I think the question is, if you have a corset and you want to replace the boning, is that?
No. Building a corset with reed boning.
Reed boning.
Reed
Material
boning.
boning.
Reed.
Technically, you would use the same methods you would as with like steel or synthetic baleen, but I know it's more delicate.
Well, so my biggest question is how to maintain the wicking method so that you can do a wet fit. I've seen that you're supposed to do a wet fit, but I've also seen, oh, you should use beeswax to help it stay stiff and not absorb too much moisture from yourself and your body.
I would probably do a wet fit and then do wax after it dries.
Okay.
Because that way also, because wax is hydrophobic, so it won't re-wet if you sweat in it, or at least it shouldn't. Be easier if you have a dress form that looks like you, so you don't have to wear it while it dries, but from your face, I don't think you do.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Purple hair?
I guess two-part question. I want to make a bodysuit that's essentially out of nylon because I want to make a skin-tight suit that I can paint or dye or whatever to be the right color that I need. And then, so I guess a good material or how to go about doing that, because like everything I find online is, it doesn't look very good, but like for things that you can just buy online. And then I would want to attach gems to it, so the best way to attach, adhere, however, gems.
Gem tack.
There is a
It's
Facebook
slightly
group.
stretchy.
There is a Facebook group called Spandex Doesn't Scare Me. They know everything from what kind of spandex to how to dye it to how to figure out what kind of mesh to do behind it to what kind of gems to the best applique stores out there to find these stuff. These ladies know everything. And they're really awesome. And you just tell them this is what I want to do. They do a lot of dance, they do a lot of ballet, they do a lot of drag queens. They have a lot of workers like me. Just to learn how to stone, 100 stones an hour these ladies can do. I was like, I needed to learn how to do that because, but that is some definitely a place you want to lurk.
And depending on what you're trying to do, if you're a beginner sewer, and you're just saying, how do I start out doing this? The Yaya Han pattern from McCall's is specifically really good for different body shapes, and I can, just using those pattern pieces now, I can whip out a full bodysuit, a rogue, Scarlet Widow in about a day. It's very forgiving because of if you're not someone who patterns yourself, I think most people don't pattern themselves. So if you're kind of newer to sewing, that is I swear to God, perfect bodysuit pattern. And it's not scary to do, and it'll have size adjustments for different, chest sizes and whatnot, so.
And the one thing I learned about spandex and gluing is that make sure that your spandex is stretched to how it will be on your body. Otherwise, you're going to end up with gaps. And there's, yeah. I love that site. I lurk it all the time.
I also found this blog called Spandex Simplified.
Oh, Marie!
What?
Is that Marie?
Marie Porter?
Yeah.
It might be, yeah. She made like ice skating.
Yeah, that's Marie.
She has a
She's
lot
great.
about how to, well, you're going to be attaching gems to it. She's got
She's so many tutorials.
I used the E6000 fabric fuse, that one specifically.
Yep.
It has a nice tiny blue nozzle and it doesn't squirt out like regular E6000.
I use that all the time. I was recommended to me by, when I was taking a burlesque class by one of my friends, because that's what they use to make the pasties, you know, and those gems don't fall off, so.
Yeah. The suggestion from the audience was E6000 or E7000, or I know other people who then take their E6000 and put it into disposable applicators.
But she's talking about the fabric fuse one, that
The
E6000
fabric
fabric
fuse.
fuse
So
specifically.
that one's really easy to work with and it doesn't smell as bad and if you.
I've got someone in my hotel room.
You could also be using a respirator with E6000 and also ventilation and also gloves.
And I was gonna say also super glue, anything that has, anything with those kind of chemical glues, if you're gonna be someone who's costuming a lot, you really should wear a mask with those kind of glues or do it outside at least.
You should do both. You should both be working outside somewhere with good ventilation. You should be wearing a respirator. I would love the 3M ones with the little pink vapor cartridges. They're great. They come in different sizes and fit a wide variety of faces, and nitrile gloves are also good. I'm really, really big on safety.
Those cartridges expire after, I think, 90 days of being exposed to oxygen.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to replace your cartridges. If you have a respirator, go replace your cartridges.
Yeah, it's, think of what you would do for your Brita filter, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that I'm 100% with you, safety, but if you're gonna be someone who's like, you know, because not everyone's gonna be with you on the everything safety, just at least do something to protect yourself. Go outside when you're doing it. Wear at least some sort of face mask. A respirator is really, you can get a good respirator that we use in our medical offices and then we can reuse them. You can get them for $25 at Home Depot or on Amazon.
Yeah, respirators are not as expensive as you think they are.
No. And it sounds intimidating. It's pretty easy to put together a respirator, two little things, boop, boop. You know, they have them in the painting area.
And checking the fit on them is really simple. Just cover the exhale, like your out vent, and then like do a big breath out, and if it like puffs up and you don't feel any leaks, then your respirator fits. Respirators are not that intimidating, and anyone working with adhesive should probably have one.
Somebody in the phone panel yesterday was, they found this device on Amazon. I forget the name of it, unfortunately, but it's like a little filter, a little vacuum cleaner that sucks the...
It's a fume extractor.
Yeah, fume extractor, yeah.
Those are only good for like very small amounts of things though, and they don't work as well with glue. They're made for soldering. So
Yeah.
it's meant for the smoke that comes off of soldering, not the fumes that come from glue.
Yeah. And I think none of their manufacturers would say this would replace a respirator.
No,
But yes,
even
that's,
in like professional environments where I've worked using Barge, because I've made mascots professionally before, so using Barge professionally is a thing I have done. Generally speaking, that is done indoors, but it is done in a spray booth, which is basically like the extremely large version of that is like a giant booth with a table surface, and it like sucks all of the air immediately out, and you still wear a respirator when doing that. You both wear a respirator and have a spray booth, which is why I say stack ventilation and a respirator. So like, even if you have something extracting fumes, you do still need to protect what you are breathing in.
because we don't want cancer.
We sure don't.
Did you have a question back here? No, I thought you did earlier, sorry.
Orange Star?
If you had to mount a hand prop to your face, how would you go about that? Because I'm regretting my choice.
Oh, just like hypothetically.
Well, how did you do it this time? Tell us what you did currently.
So I have just kind of straight and that little magnetic bicycle clasp. Yeah, so it's starting to cut in a bit.
Yeah, so we can see. Yeah,
So the
Something
way,
wider, like, well, then maybe, I know there's like clear straps for like bras
Bras.
and stuff.
so the way that they did it when they did the stage shows is they put magnets in the tips of the fingers and then on the inside of the wig, so you can actually take it off on stage. And then the bottom doesn't attach at all, so it's just the top fingers are magnetized.
Okay.
So yeah.
And like, if you're looking for strong magnets for that, like check out neodymium magnets, like.
Or are you looking to glue it on?
Whatever works.
So with the magnets on the wig, do they also have the wigs like more securely attached to their head? Like with
So usually you would, so for someone that does not have hair, you would usually put a glue, you can either use lace tape or you could use, like, if you really want to be extreme, like spirit gum, and you would put it along the edge. If you have more hair, in theater usually, you can kind of see maybe, you do crisscross bobby pins at the temples, and then for something like that that's maybe going to pull forward, you would want to attach it at the back, but yeah.
Yeah, you can also, if you have hair to prep under something like that, do pin curls.
If your hair's long enough.
Yeah, if your hair is long enough, trust me, I am just at the length where I can kind of pin curl my hair. And then you can take hairpins, like the U type, and then kind of pierce them through the wig and get them into an individual pin curl, and you can do that in like at your temples and up here to hold the weight, so all the weight is not on your temples, which might give you a headache. And that will help distribute the weight a little bit better because you have many different points of contact holding it. It doesn't help if you don't have hair, but if you have hair and you're doing something like that, securing your wig thoroughly with like big U hairpins is great.
I'm gonna throw in medical adhesive. You can get a bottle it's expensive, but it lasts forever. Like a 2-ounce bottle is like $20, but it's the stuff that like will attach anything to anything and let it stay for a while, and then when you take it off, it's not painful. So in burlesque, you'd use it for pasties, you know, so.
Are you speaking about Prosade specifically, or do you have a different name? Are you speaking about Prosade specifically? You did not say a brand name.
I did not say a brand name, I said medical adhesive. There's lots of brand names.
As the former head of customer service at Graftobian Makeup Company for over 20 years, now retired, I can tell you that there are products called Prosade or Pro Adhesive. They are a copolymer acrylic adhesive. Even the best spirit gum would not hold that on. It just depends upon whether or not you want to hold it on. My number one thing when it comes to any adhesives is please, please, please buy the correct remover for it. Some of the surgical adhesives that are sold out there and recommended do not come with the solvent. And then you get on the customer service phone line the next day, do I get this off? So if you're buying a company's prosthetic adhesive, buy the remover at the same time. If you're buying spirit gum, buy the same brand spirit gum remover. That will save a lot of Halloweens.
Also test it out on your skin.
Yeah.
Test it out on your skin. Test it out on your skin. Do not try and do it the day of. All adhesives that go on your skin should be done on clean, dry skin. Do not put any oils or lotions ahead of them. I could talk for hours about makeup. I'll shut up now.
For the magnets, when you mentioned it, was there like a brand of magnet that has good strong magnets?
Rare earth magnets.
Rare earth magnets, also called neodymium magnets, I believe.
That's what I would do.
Magnets?
Rare earth.
Vintage pencil.
on Amazon. They'll tell you which ones are the good ones and which ones aren't.
Yeah, they're widely available at this point.
Don't eat them.
Okay, so in the back row.
And don't get your fingers anywhere in between them.
Don't do that.
Because I pinched myself back.
Did you have a question back there?
Actually, I did a nurse native, or and I'm totally blanking up, with the bird mask, the
Plague doctor.
Plague doctor, thank you. I did that, and I did a nurse one, but I didn't want to deal with the straps. So I actually went to Axeman and got the little magnets and did a little headband. And then I changed it over to a wig cap because I was wearing a hood. So the wig cap sits on top of my hair, and I have the magnet sewn in. So basically, I can pull it off,
Oh,
and it comes off easily. And then when I put it back on, it just snaps back in place.
that's excellent.
Might be an idea with the wig cap.
I'm actually going to X-Men later today.
That's where I got mine. They were not.
I've also gotten magnets from Axeman. They're strong. You can get good ones.
Without walking up $50 later.
What is this place? And do I want to know about it?
No.
Your mom does it, you will.
Their main store is in St. Paul's on West University. It's between Snelling and Dartmouth.
So St. Paul is on the way home to Madison.
It's like SR Harris and everything else.
If you've
Okay.
ever been to the Science Surplus store in Milwaukee, it's similar to that.
Okay.
And they have funny signs for their items too.
Oh, yeah. And some weird, creepy things that they put together.
Okay, let's start here.
Do you have favorite patterns that you find yourself using for like lots of costumes, like your go-tos, either like corsets or onesies or?
I have a list.
I love
I can't tell the answer is yes, I have a list. If anyone else wants to go while I'm finding the list, go for it.
There's a site called patternreview.com. It is, if you make a pattern, please post when you review it, because the more reviews that they get, the pattern will be, but it is a good place to start. If you are doing historical costuming, for example, if you're doing a Margot's costuming, of course join their social media sites where they talk about these things. There's like truly Victorian patterns are really great for Victorians, but sometimes they forget things when they write up their instructions. And so there's sites out there that can help you with that.
I've also done where you like YouTube or Google the pattern, like you feel like I'm not understanding this or it's written really weird. You just type in the pattern number, and usually a lot of patterns have someone who's done a tutorial on them. So if you're in a bind, you can go to that section and see what they did. So.
I use the same pixel pattern for 6 different ways. See, those are the ones that I'm looking for. That's like the generalists. You know, bootstrap patterns have like ones that you can actually put in your measurements. There's like a lot of really like basic like block styles. And they have a pattern for a mannequin.
Yeah,
You
that's
use
right.
the
You're a
measurement
mannequin, and you can put in
make
your
your own
size, and it allows you to use a bootstrap.
For those who could not hear, the answer for is bootstrap. That you can make your own patterns, you can make your own mannequin covers. You can buy the pattern, then quite often you can come with a basic shirt pattern. That's really nice because dummies and mannequins are never the appropriate size. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to costuming. I have a basic top pattern that I have learned to tweak with princess lines, and I was like, oh, I could add tails to that. I have a basic skirt pattern that I just basically change. But sometimes if you're doing something like a single pattern costume, you actually have to use that pattern. And then you have challenges, because sometimes the directions are not so good.
For very, very basic, Simplicity 3723 is good for very, very basic. Like, it's one of those ones that they put all of the historical time periods together, so there's like technically a Pilgrim one and a Rococo one, but it's a very, very basic block top and block skirt. I also like to have a circle skirt pattern, because basically if you have a circle skirt pattern, you can extend it as long or as short as you want, and you can make anything from, you know, a really, really short, you know, showgirl skirt all the way to a ball gown. And so yeah, that would be my number one, just like basic block pattern. Yeah, and I know you mentioned Truly Victorian.
Truly Victorian.
I'm wearing their corset, their Victorian corset right now. So.
What was the Simplicity number again?
Oh no, it just closed. Yes, it was 2123.
Remember that patterns are just the starting off point, you know? You can Franken pattern anything. I'm convinced. I was once making something and my husband's like, what are you doing? I says, I don't like the sleeve for that one. I want the sleeve from this one. He says, you can do that? I says, yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
You can just draw shapes on a piece of paper and it's patterned out. That's what I do.
Costumer's handbook is really awesome for that too. It talks about how to make a body block for male and female both. But it's completely from patterns and that's, or from measurements, and that's what I do.
What was it called?
Costumer's handbook.
Costume Technician's Handbook, right?
Costume
Technician's Handbook.
No, it was the costumer's handbook.
No? Oh, I've used the Costume Technician's Handbooks block before.
I was going to say, years ago, I took a class from a sewing place on basically making a pattern from an existing garment without having to tear it apart. One of the most useful things I ever took. And I have found now that I almost never go buy a pattern. I find something in my closet that fits with the lines the way I like it, and then take a pattern off of it, because when I make a pattern, you always have to make it twice, because you make it the first time to find out that whatever their measurements were did not match your body. And then you have to figure out how to adjust it, and it was just easier to just make a pattern off of something I already know how it fits.
I do that a lot. I do it a lot for spandex, or I would say furry stretch type costuming. Or if I'm going to make a dress, I'll take a dress that I know fits me well, that, you know, maybe I bought online and it was a gamble, and then I will just copy those lines and then add the seam allowances. So
you can use wrapping paper, or I get butcher paper from like Smart and Vinyl or whatever. It's like 50 plus yards for like, I don't remember how much it was, but you just roll it off and cut it, and you can tape it if you want to make your own patterns.
Craft paper.
You can get banner paper from Elmer's. I think Elmer's has banner roll paper where you can know how you draw a banner, and it works really well for making patterns.
And I've used banner roll and wood glue to secure the cheapo tissue patterns onto something more structurally sound.
see, when I'm making my own, I just take the old tissue patterns of the ones that I purchased that I don't want to use, and then just draw over it.
So with altering patterns, say things for like lacing, like kirtles or corsets, and you want to change where the lacing is, how do you recommend going about that? I know like using seams is helpful, but like which seams?
It depends. Are you a high-born lady or not? Because if you're high-born, you usually have the lacings in the back. If you're not, then you want them on the side or the front.
Well, I do dress as a high-born lady, but I still have to get myself dressed. So.
Well, okay. I'm doing a Rococo punk thing, eventually, because I was doing Rococo punk, I went to Red Thread, which is who has, I hope, what people have told me the best corsets. And they had 3 different patterns that you could pick that were in the 1700s. And I went with the one that I could lace myself, which was a front lacing one with the stomacher. If I had not been able to do that, I would have done side lacings on both sides. And I would have tightly laced my right side, and I would have loosely laced my left side, because I can cinch this way, but my arm doesn't cinch that way. So you can change it, you just have to think in terms of seam allowances, and if you're moving your lacing, to be sure to, put your boning on each side and to do all the things that you would normally do.
If you're worried about getting in and out yourself, you can also do fake lacing and put a zipper or something under it. I know, but putting it out there that you can do that.
You can do that.
Rigging is allowed. We love it.
Yes.
Yes.
I hate zippers.
Just a suggestion on the pattern paper, you can always go ahead and get that horrible garden fabric stuff. You can't iron it, it's super cheap, it's only in black, but it's something easy to use that's a little more flexible than the tissue paper and a little more flexible than brown paper. And really, it's the only thing that's good Don't put it in her, please.
Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left here.
Favorite websites or favorite YouTube people?
Don't start with me, I don't YouTube.
I like Bernadette Banner a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can we cosplay?
I don't really have favorites. I just look for what I want and then piecemeal together and
Videos are funny.
I'm in a Discord server I really like.
A Discord site. I mean, one of my favorite sites is thistothat.com.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you need to learn how to glue something, I already told you about spandex, doesn't scare me. The site that I found this morning is a lady who is plus size who is converting patterns, historical patterns to her site. It's like oh God. It showed up this morning and I've saved it, and she's a YouTuber from Canada, and I'm like really excited to be able to watch those when I'm not excited. I'm not a YouTube person. I find most of the people, I don't really care about your cats or what you had for lunch. But sometimes you can find some really good stuff out there, especially if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite website. I just do the research based on what material I'm working with and what goals I have for my costume at a particular time.
Adam Savage.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for some of your bigger, unusual things, I got to put, again, if you, but his stuff is instructional and is very pragmatic, and he doesn't forget steps, and he tells you the truth. Which I think is really cool for somebody on YouTube, is to actually tell you the truth about what they did.
what about your favorite, so this panel is make it work. So what happens when we try to make something work and we can't, we get really frustrated? How do you guys handle the frustration and getting over that hurdle? Like, what's your best tip for that?
My best tip is to put it down and go do something else. Take a nap, sleep on it, go eat a snack, you might be hangry.
Yeah.
Don't look at the thing for a little while. I simply walk away. And like, usually time will give you the ability to reflect on whatever your problem is with a clearer head, and you can come back to it and actually make sense of what was stumping you. But like, don't beat yourself up. This is why crunch is bad. I say guilty of crunching this past week. Giving yourself the time and space to like work in a comfortable manner and take breaks to like think through what you're working on is just one of the most important things.
Sometimes if I've gotten a bunch like in a row that gets really frustrating, sometimes I put on anything that's done and chill in it for a little bit and just vibe with my costume.
Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good idea.
There's a weird photo that my mother took where I look like, I'm in the skirt for this because the bodice is giving me trouble. I look like I'm floating above the ground for some reason. I don't know why. But it's my profile pic and it just makes me laugh every time.
I was kind of going with that. I noticed that if I start making mistakes, like sewing a seam to the wrong thing and then I gotta rip it, or like those kind of dumb mistakes, I'm hungry or I'm tired or I'm frustrated, and if I just take a break, things come back together when you need the clear head. So make sure that if you are getting frustrated, if you're trying to make something work, you're not getting the right video, you're not getting, figuring this out. Take a break is the biggest advice I can give.
And everyone gets frustrated and does things wrong.
Yeah, and swearing, that's a prerequisite.
There's actually a panel I've done called, it's called a creative detour. What happens when things go wrong and what you can do, but we don't have an hour for that panel right now. Because trust me, things go wrong.
Time to say swearing, any other?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if I get frustrated working on one part of the costume and the swearing isn't helping, I can stop working that part and work on a different part of the costume for a while.
First rule of thumb is put down the scissors.
Yeah.
Second rule of thumb, if you're using sewing machine, change the needle.
Put down the matches, don't burn anything. have 10 seconds left
Pick out what you
for reference.
Above all, have fun. Remember that that little detail that you are fretting about is not going to be seen. I mean, it will be seen by you. It might be seen if you're doing a judging, but sometimes something has to give, and you just need to figure out what is going to give and still get the effect of what you want. You have to be able to wear it. You have to be able to walk through a doorway. You might have to be able to put it in a suitcase. So work within those limitations and just be okay with that.
Don't forget the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yes, number one, surviving your own creativity. Yeah, go to
Go to your bathroom and try to go to the bathroom in it, and then adjust accordingly.
If you have space and access inside everything, back to the glue, like adhesives, expanding foam will truly glue anything to anything. And you can cut off if you have access in space, and it will glue CP, it will stick like this. It will stick to CPVC, it will stick to it will stick to everything. Yes, you have to be really careful. If you have space to work, you can cut off, it will glue anything.
It is 12:30 now.
Thank you for coming,
It is.
everyone.
I have a lunch date.